Majority of people are asking, where did rain started beating America, one of the greatest in the world, places, one of the greatest nations that people have ever seen is America. But one of the biggest questions is that America is suffering from what is called racism. But again, one of the biggest questions that people are asking, why and how did America choose a white supremacist to become the president for the United States? Brothers and sisters, in this video, you are going to see Paul Lance. I think Paul Lance is a podcaster, and he talks about, he criticizes America and generally Donald Trump for what he has always been doing. He also talks about more about racism and race relations in the United States. But brothers and sisters, in this segment, he was trying to describe how and why did America choose a white supremacist to become the president for the United States. Brothers and sisters, I want us to watch this video, and then I'll be back. I'll be sharing my 2 cents in regards to this. So let's watch the video. I'll be back.
How did we get to this point where a white supremacist was elected president of the United States? Let's go back to 1619 and see how we got here. So white people came over here and stole the land from the Native Americans and murdered them, gave them smallpox blankets and other horrible things where we just murdered them, starved them, they died of sicknesses, and just kicked them off their land. Then white people said, we're too lazy to work for ourselves, so we're going to kidnap black people. And as they came over here on the Middle Passage, 1.8 million of them died, shackled to the bottom of a ship for up to 6 months, with rats, with diseases, starvations, and when they died, the white man threw them into the ocean and let the bull sharks eat them. In fact, it happened so frequently that the bull sharks would follow the slave routes knowing that it was a buffet. It's disgusting. Once the black people got here, they weren't even allowed to do anything. In fact, the founding fathers said that black people were only worth 3/5 of a white man. In fact, you can't even vote. You're not even a citizen. But welcome to the greatest nation in this country. Women couldn't even vote. They weren't even able to have credits. They weren't able to get a divorce from their husbands. That's how this country was designed. And once this country started, you know what white people did? They ignored all of the horrible stuff that happened to women, to black people, to Native Americans. And then in the early 30s and 40s, Asians were locked in internment camps for years. Thousands of them died. And throughout the course of this country, white people like me stood by and say, I don't care, it doesn't affect me. Because we're too lazy to give a damn about anybody else. At that same time, part of this country is just white trash. And what one party did, the Republican Party, my former party does, is that they had weaponized the stupidity and racism and misogyny of part of this country, and they tell them that you're the best of the best of the best. Just ignore all of the horrible stuff that's ever been done. Here's 48,000 flags, and here's 38 guns. Here's a song, God Bless America. Does it give you goosebumps? Does it make you feel a certain way? Look, here's a symbol, the bald eagle. Ooh, look at the flag, the red, white, and blue. Ignore all of the horrible stuff that white people did in this country for 250 years. Just ignore it. We're the best of the best. And what we're seeing now is that we're not. This country has never been great for everybody. That's a fact. You know what this hat is? It is the Kansas City Monarchs. I got this for Father's Day. It reminds me that we're not great. It was a Negro League baseball team. Why did we have to have a Negro League baseball team? If we're such a great nation? Why has a woman never been president of the United States, even though 51% of our country are women? because there's too many misogynistic pigs. And there's two sides of this equation. You have the racism combined with the misogyny in 2024. 77 million Americans went to the ballot box and ignored rape, Donald Trump sexually assaulting 24 women, cheating on every wife, having sex with a porn star while his wife is nursing their 2-week-old son, and committing 34 felonies. He lied about the election being stolen with no evidence, while thousands of his white trash, make America white again, hillbilly, 6-teeth inbreds beat police officers. Michael Fanone had a heart attack, almost died. Sitnick died the next day. 4 officers committed suicide. He added $8.2 trillion to the debt. He's posting memes of the Obamas as monkeys. He stole from cancer charities. He's defending child molesters and is very likely a child molester. And he has dinner with white supremacists in his house. And 77 million people said, oh, this is really hard. I don't know. Oh, God, I just can't vote for the black woman. I don't like her laugh. I don't like her shoes. I don't like her suit. Ooh, she slept her way to the top. And a convicted felon tapped into your hatred, your misogyny, and your racism, and a rapist, child molester, convicted felon convinced you that the dirty brown people coming from Mexico were the problem for your shitty life. That's exactly what he did. Because you couldn't stomach the black woman. And Barack Obama was the first domino. When white people talked to John McCain and he took the mic, do you remember what that white trash MAGA lady said? He's a Muslim. He's a terrorist. You know why? Because of 9/11. What are you seeing right now? What does Ted Cruz post about Zohran Mamdani? He's a jihadist. Andy Bogles, a Republican, post a picture of 9/11 when Zohran Mamdani was running. What are they calling El Said right now? A jihadist, a terrorist. He hates America. What is Donald Trump posting? A picture of him, a white couple with his wife that he doesn't even basically stay in the same house with because she can't stand his guts. And you have a picture of El Said and his, I think it's his mom or his wife. I'm sorry if I don't know. And he's like, 2 Americas. What does that mean? Oh, he's brown? My friends, this is what this is about. This is not about politics. It's not. It's about the original sin of this country that too many of you either refuse to acknowledge or you don't want to talk about it because you don't want to be uncomfortable. He won because of white supremacy. They're poisoning their blood of Americans, right? To Mexicans. He called Puerto Rico a shithole country. Very fine people on both sides to white supremacists. Man didn't rent to black people. Took down the history of slavery at the president's house. He just submitted a 180-page PDF to the Smithsonian that mentioned the word whiteness 170 times. Who did a lot of these white trash MAGA worship? Charlie Kirk, a white supremacist, right? If the pilot's black, are they qualified? The great white replacement theory. He said, if I go into a department store and I see a lesbian black woman, is she qualified? He said that Justice Jackson is an affirmative action hire and that Harris was Black Hillary. That's why they liked him, because he was a racist. And that's what we're seeing right now. The hoods are off. The economy's in the toilet. Inflation's going up. People are losing their jobs. People can't find work. So they're going to go back to what they know. Raw, unadulterated anti-Semitism and white supremacy. It's going to work for some of his base. But your friends and family did not become this way because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a black light on the people in your life that you thought were good people. that voted for this because they didn't care. And for all of you that say, well, I didn't vote for this, you did. You can't vote for Hitler and say, well, I don't agree that he murdered 7 million Jews, but I like his health care plan. You can't vote for Jeffrey Epstein. Well, that's really bad that he molested children, but he promised no tax on tips. You don't get to do that. Because so many of you people call yourselves Christians, family values. And you said values, morality, decency are irrelevant. As long as he's a white man and he promised me low taxes, I don't care about morality. That's why we're here. That's the only reason we're here. The Democrats winning the midterms isn't going to fix this. We have people in concentration camps right now, people, eating moldy bread, maggots. Guards are taking bets to see who's going to commit suicide next. They're reversing the 14th Amendment. They're going to do it because they don't want non-white people here. Why are they arresting immigrants at court if they're going through the legal process? Because they don't want them here. Why are off-duty police officers in Minneapolis being pulled over? Because they're black. Just today, I saw a video of a U.S. citizen, because she looked Hispanic, pulled her over with a gun in her face. This is what's happening. But you know what's not happening on the other side for people that didn't vote for this? You're not willing to stand up. And that's the real issue. Because that's what white people have done since 1619. You put your heads up your asses and you said, it doesn't affect me. And you're doing it right now. I'm going to watch Ted Lasso. The new episode came out. I'm going to watch X-Men 97 on Disney+. I'm going to watch Major League Baseball. I'm going to watch the Summer League in the NBA. I'm going to go see Masters of the Universe and Superwoman. I don't care about them. Hey, it sucks that 50 people have died in concentration camps, but sorry, I got a tea time in 30 minutes. There's nothing I can do. That is the problem. The Republicans are Derek Chauvin purposely being open white supremacists, and all of you that look like me, that have privilege, that sit by and do nothing, you're the three officers that stand by and watch it happen. You're both complicit in different ways. When are you going to stand up? I just want to know. Because black people don't have that luxury. They don't have the luxury to ignore it. Are you called the N-word? Do you have to give the talk to your kid? Has your house been redlined? Were your grandparents in somebody's will? Were your great-great-grandparents hanging from a tree? No? That's privilege. Has nothing to do with your money. It means it's how you're treated. You're treated differently. This country is either going to make it through this when white people get off their privileged little white asses and do something, or you're going to sit in your privilege watching Ted Lasso, watching baseball, and saying, I don't give a shit, it doesn't affect me, and the country will fall. And I hope that every white person that's not doing what I'm doing, I hope you get it the worst. And I mean that from my soul. You say, well, Paul, that's not nice. I don't care if it's nice. I don't care. If you didn't see voting for a rapist as a red line, how else am I supposed to look at you? Harris wasn't a rapist. She's not on the Epstein files. She wasn't a felon. She didn't cause an insurrection. She doesn't married multiple times and cheat on her husband with a porn star. She's not posting images of the Obamas as monkeys. She didn't cause an insurrection. You didn't vote for her because she's a black woman. So cut the shit. Just stop it. You want to fix this country? Then fix the damn problem. Because we should have punished the Confederacy. That's what Make America White Again is. It is the remnants of the Confederacy. We might have won the battle, but MAGA won the war, the Confederacy, because that's what they are. Donald Trump said, take off your white hoods and put on your red hats. Don't be afraid to be a racist piece of shit. Do it in the open. I'm going to let you go. So Colin Kaepernick is a son of a bitch for taking a knee and peacefully protesting. But when white people beat the crap out of police officers, take a crap on Nancy Pelosi's desk, drag officers out, beat them with fire extinguishers and American flags. They're a patriot. The poor, innocent white men. Let's pardon all of them and give them $1.7 billion. Now, you tell me that that's not white supremacy. Tell me there's not two different standards. It's up to you, white people. With great power comes great responsibility. White supremacy succeeds when white people do nothing. We will not remember the words of our enemies, rather the silence of white people. And that's what you're doing right now. Because you're not willing to be uncomfortable for somebody else. Have a white day. A couple days ago, allegedly there was a threat when Donald Trump was in Turkey. So what the Secret Service did is that they took his fat ass and shoved him into a food cart with a bunch of cheeseburgers. And they snuck him off to another airplane. There was over 100 people on Air Force One that had no idea what was going on. Zero. And they stuck him away and they left everybody else in harm's way. Just think about that. Do you know how sick and depraved you have to be? There was moms and dads and cousins and brothers. And he says, I don't give a shit about you. I'm going to look after my fat ass. That's the kind of person that he is. And even when he was questioned later, when they said, why didn't you tell those people that their lives were possibly in jeopardy? Well, actually, my airplane was in more jeopardy. You mean the airplane that nobody knew you were on was in more jeopardy? See, he doesn't care about anybody but himself. He is a sociopath. He doesn't love his mom, his dad, his wives, his kids, his grandkids. He doesn't give a damn, only for himself. And that exemplifies, based on a conversation I had this morning with a Trump supporter, a 21-year-old, the atypical, beta alpha male, mediocre white man with a micro penis that needs toxic masculinity and nationalism. And I said, how did you vote for a rapist and a felon and January 6th? And of course, as always, they crash out. And he goes, let me ask you a question, sir. Why did you vote for Harris? Great question. I voted for universal health care, to raise minimum wage, to tax the shit out of rich people, to prevent children from being shot in schools, to help people get out of student loans so they can afford a house and they're not in debt for 20 years, to help people start small businesses. I voted for you, sir, and I voted for everybody else in this country except for myself. And as a small business owner, my taxes were going to go up. You know why, sir? Because I'm not a selfish prick like you. You and MAGA only give a damn about themselves. Me, 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 me. The party of family values my ass. It's the party of I'm a selfish prick and I don't give a damn about anybody and my stupid ass metal gun. That's what Donald Trump represents. He's like a pile of dog shit and MAGA are his flies. He is a representation of the selfishness and the moral rot and the racism and the misogyny in this country. They really don't care about anybody. How you can see children gunned down in schools, identified by their dental records, and your first thought isn't, this is horrible. We have to stop this. What kind of civilized society operates this way? Your first thought is, guns, my guns, you're not taking my guns, freedom, freedom, freedom. You're sick. You're sick people. You say, liberty, don't tread on me. Your guns tread on everybody. You force women to not have abortions. You force your religion on everybody. You literally want to control everybody. That's the opposite of freedom. But that's where we are as a country. We have a president that's willing to let 100 Americans die on Air Force One to save his little fat ass while he's eating cheeseburgers, while he's putting up arches, putting his name on passports, putting his name on $250 bills, starting Trump RX, selling Trump phones, selling 250 medallions with his name on it. He's literally worshiping himself, and he's going to spend almost $1 trillion rebuilding the White House while people can't even pay the rent. It's a shame, but this is what people voted for. And I'm looking forward to the day where every single white trash MAGA with 6 teeth that voted for the rapist, karma's a bitch. And I hope on that day, I'm going to bring out my Deadpool versus Wolverine bucket, and I'm going to have a Diet Coke, and I'm going to sit there with my popcorn while every single one of you fucked around and find out, and you lose your jobs, and you lose your health care, and you lose your cars. You know what I'm going to say? Thoughts and prayers. I'm going to look after myself because I really don't give a damn for every single MAGA that suffers the effects of their racism and their misogyny. It's unfortunate that good people that didn't vote for this are going to be hurt, but there's no way around it. When the forest fire comes, it doesn't care if you're a tent or a cabin or a tree or a squirrel or a deer. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you voted for this or not. Have a good day.
It is very sickening that we are envisioning this happening in the United States. But brothers and sisters, I also tried to look up and saw the reasons why this was happening, right? So one of the things that I came to find was that the first factor was changing racial and demographic identity of America. Now, for much of America history, whiteness occupied privileged positions within the country's social and political hierarchy. As the United States became increasingly multiracial, and as Barack Obama became president, and some white Americans experienced demographic and cultural change, not simply as normal social transformation, but as a loss of status. This does not mean that every Trump voter consciously wanted racial domination. Rather, political scientists have found that perceptions about race became strongly connected to political preferences. Now, Trump's campaign understood this environment extremely well. Instead of speaking only about taxes or jobs, he repeatedly talked about immigration, Muslims, crime borders, national identity, and the idea of America was being taken away from ordinary Americans. So researchers have consequently found racial attitudes to be amongst the strongest predicators of white support for Trump, right? So that's what really happened. People chose racism. And Trump was like a parasite, and he knew the host. And he dwelled into the fears of these folks. The moment he learned about the fears, that's where he dwelt in. Right. The second reason is that immigration became one of the most powerful symbols of this cultural conflict. Now, Trump's promise to build a wall on the Mexican border was not merely an infrastructure proposal. Politically, it represented a much larger message about who belonged in America and who did not. His campaign portrayed illegal immigration as connected to crime, economic competition, insecurity, and loss of national control. For voters already worried about demographic change, this message provided a simple explanation for complicated social problems. So according to the research which was done from 2016, for example, the 2016 election, looking it back, found that immigration attitudes were strongly associated with support for Trump, alongside racial attitudes. Importantly, immigration concerns cannot automatically be labeled as racist. People can have legitimate disagreements about borders and immigration policy, but Trump's success demonstrated how immigration could be intertwined with the racial and cultural fears. The third reason that was given was the feeling among some white Americans that they were losing their cultural position. This is sometimes described as status threat. When a society changes, people who previously regarded their cultural norms as the national default may suddenly feel that those norms are being challenged. Trump offered those voters some psychological powerful, restoration. And his message was essentially that America had become too politically correct, too multicultural, too weak, and too accommodating, and that it will restore an older conception of American power and identity. Research on white evangelical voters, for example, has identified a sense of in-group embattlement, the perception that their group was under attack or being treated unfairly as an important component of the political attitudes. That's according to a research which was done at Cambridge University. The fourth reason was, and still is, economic frustration also mattered. But simple, poor white people voted Trump explanation. Now, there were communities devastated by deindustrialization, declining manufacturing employment, globalization, automation, stagnant wages, and disappearance of traditional industries. Trump spoke directly to these frustrations, promising to bringing manufacturing jobs back, negotiating trade arrangements, and punish corporations that moved production overseas. Yet, serious academic research warns against treating the election as simply a revolt of impoverished white workers. Kant's and Lupul's analysis found that several popular claims about the white working class and Trump, there was a correlation to that. And we have some studies that have also shown that why do we always keep seeing poor white folks voting against their own interest? Why do white people keep voting against their own interest? And they keep on doing this. And they keep on repeating this. Right? So it's a question that people are still trying to, ask. The fifth reason is, what made Trump economic message particularly powerful was that it was connected to economic frustration. Right? Now, Trump offered identifiable targets. That includes immigrants, China, globalization, Washington, politicians, multinational corporations, and political elites. This is an extremely effective form of populist politics because it transforms complicated problems into a story with clear villains and heroic solutions. A factory closure becomes evidence that politicians betrayed workers. Immigration became evidence that the government abandoned citizens. Political correctness became evident that ordinary Americans are no longer allowed to speak freely. Trump's extraordinary political skill was his ability to combine economic grievances with cultural grievances into one large narrative of national betrayal. Another factor was the transformation of Republican Party itself. Trump did not create every element of the politics that eventually produced his presidency. For decades, Republican politics has increasingly emphasizes conservative Christianity, opposition to abortion, gun rights, immigration restriction, nationalism, skepticism towards government, and the resistance to democratic cultural politics. Trump entered this environment and discovered that many Republican voters were willing to overlook his personal behavior if they believed he would fight their cultural and political enemies. This was particularly obvious among white evangelical voters. Right. Trump won white evangelical voters by enormous margin by 79% to 16%, according to National Election Poll exit survey cited by Brookings. Right. Trump had been married multiple times, which was not known for the religious lifestyle associated with many evangelical leaders, and frequently behaved in ways that contradicted conventional Christian teachings about humility and personal conduct, right? And personal conduct. Yet many evangelical voters nevertheless supported him because they considered the political states more important than his character. Pew found that 35%, Pew Research found that 35% of white evangelical Trump supporters specifically mentioned supporting him because he was not Hillary Clinton, while large majorities also cited his position on terrorism, the economy, immigration, and leadership. This is all according to the Pew Research. And this demonstrates that political identity can become stronger than ideological consistency. Voters sometimes support a candidate because he is fighting the people they fear or dislike. You know where all this goes, right? Another reason was that Trump's coalition contained enormous numbers of white voters without four-year college degree. Let's look in 2016. In 2016, its margin among white voters without college degree was dramatically larger than among white college graduates. But education itself should not be interpreted as a proof of intelligence or morality. Instead, education increasingly became associated with different cultural environments, occupations, geographic communities, and political worldviews. Many college-educated Americans lived in metropolitan environments, becoming more diverse and socially liberated, while many non-college whites lived in communities experiencing industrial decline and demographic change. So research therefore suggests that the education divide was partly an economic divide, but also cultural, right? So please, let me know what you'll think about this. As you know, I'm your host and presenter Generic Stories. But until then, let me see you in my next video. Peace, love, and harmony. Salute.